For oil and gas companies in the energy sector, records management best practices can have a significant positive impact on things like information access, compliance, and risk management. We talked to TAB experts Brenda Vandermeer and Angela McKelvey to find out more. Why are records management best practices so important for the oil and gas industry?
Records management practices are very important for the oil and gas industry due to the fact that oil and gas is continuing to thrive. They are creating substantial amounts of information on a regular basis.
It's a heavily regulated industry, so there is a strong need for companies within oil and gas to have a records management program in place so that they can meet those regulatory requirements that they may have.
What about the role of policies and procedures?
Policies are really important in the oil and gas industry because they are regulated. So a policy also for a records management program gives accountability to the program.
And then the procedures really support the policy and become the how-to for the end users that need to adhere to the policy. It gives them some guidelines and accountability for what they're responsible for.
Why is it important to have the right classification and retention systems in place?
You know, again, with the oil and gas industry being so heavily regulated, it's important to have a classification structure that indicates what business they are in, and then really the retention schedule supports and indicates how long they're legally required to retain that information. So again, they're not holding on to information for too long and they're not holding on for it too short, so they really are compliant with their record keeping by having a classification and retention schedule in place.
So also a classification is important for the retention schedule. It identifies the types of records within the schedule, and it also identifies who the owners are and the accountability to those documents.
What do energy companies need to know about records disposition?
So those organizations that have a classification and retention schedule in place need to adhere to those retention timeframes. So it's important for them to do an annual disposition with those records that have met their retention requirements. So what they need to do is pull a listing of those records, pull them back physically, ensure that the appropriate individuals have reviewed the documents and that there is no litigation holds or legal holds on the documents. So generally that includes taking the documents through tax, legal, and finance to ensure that there's no, again, no legal holds or audit holds. And then they can formally dispose of the information and have a sign-off that those records have been disposed of.
Also, it's very important that companies do not discard records before it's time. Technical records in an oil and gas industry need to be kept permanent. So again, the process needs to be approved by the legal or tax departments to ensure that these records aren't destroyed before it's time.
What do energy companies need to know about indexing?
So indexing is very important in the oil and gas industry. They don't have specific standards on how to index, but most oil and gas companies for technical information use the UWI, which is a unique identifier, and it's mostly used for well files. So indexing according to how the users need to access their information is very important, and that's where TAB can help companies ensure that they can access their information by listening to the users and identifying how the indexing process needs to work.
Privacy protection and confidentiality are huge concerns for oil and gas firms. What exactly are we talking about, and how should these concerns be handled?
Privacy and confidentiality work together. So privacy is really around personal privacy of information within the oil and gas industry, and examples of that could be SIN numbers or identification numbers that need to be protected. So we have to make sure that when indexing that those numbers aren't visible to everybody in the company. Confidentiality of information is also key to identifying or is ensuring securities around information, whether that's just sitting on a shelf or if it's in an electronic data management system. Again, securities are really important to keep the information confidential, and the privacy also reflects that.
If you'd like to find out more about implementing records management best practices at your organization, simply click on the link below.